Now that's homemade.
She made this too, I think,
yes.
huh? Oh
my mother made that.
Look at that.
And she made this for me to go thrashing with my friend. And they got several pictures. It was on the news.
Yeah.
And they showed it one time. But I'm talking about 15 years ago. This happened. So I kept it around, hoping that someday that I could. And
you want me to
the
show
thing
that?
was,
You want to film it?
the thing is, you see, there's her. She put her initials on the back of the braces here on the bib overall.
Can I just show that again, Bob? Isn't that neat, eh?
Just to I told her, I said, put your initials on there, Mother, just to prove that you made this uniform for me. But there was, years ago, like, there was nothing that Mother would. There was, sewing was just something that she challenged every day, you know, like making dresses, making wedding gowns and wedding dresses was a real specialty for my mother. She just used to love doing that. And she worked for Manpower for 6 years, showing, running sewing classes for Manpower, teaching. There's an old farmer, if you ever seen that.
It looks good with the moccasins too.
Yeah, it does too. Look at that.
Yeah, that's... Huh.
It's an outfit.
So when would she have made this then?
She made this for me probably in the late 80s.
Yeah.
87, 88, in there someplace.
Look at pocket in the front and then 2 pockets on the jacket.
Yeah,
I like that.
Oh yeah.
You just got room to put lots of stuff in there.
Oh yeah, some pockets up here. Yes. I got a pocket here too and a big overalls. So you girls can take this back with you and put it in the museum.
Yeah, we sure can. That'd be
Watch their TV there.
So do you want to tell us a little bit of the story about your grandma and the potato again?
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, anyway, years ago when I was a kid, I used to get such pains in my shoulder, both of them, and then it used to work down to my elbows, and boy, I couldn't sleep. I used to just walk the floor. And the little house that we were living in, it was a little 2-story house, and Grandma and I, we slept upstairs. She had half of the upstairs, I had the other half of the upstairs, and I used to just walk back and forth through the night, and she'd wake up and see what's going on. Anyway, this one day, she said, why, your arms were sure bothering you last night. I said, yeah. I said, oh, they were aching so bad, Grandma. It was just unreal. I said, I was just about crying. I said, with the pain in my arms and in my elbows. So anyway, that day I went to school. When I came back that night, she gave me a little potato, which was about the size of my thumb. And she said, you put this in your pocket. So I put that little potato in my pocket, and I carried that potato till it was as hard as a rock. At the end there, you couldn't tell whether it was a rock or a potato. a lot of guys would ask me, "What is that?" And I'd give it to them. He said, "Well, how come you're carrying this little rock in your pocket?" And I said, "No, it's not a rock." I said, "That used to be a potato." And a lot of them wouldn't believe me. It was a potato. But it was a potato. And anyway, I carried that potato in my pocket for years and years. And I was already probably 16, 17 years old. All of a sudden, that little potato disappeared. What happened, I can't really tell you, girls. But as far as I know, like, and my grandma said to me, I asked her, I said, "I wonder what happened to my little potato." I said, "I can't find it." And I had it in my pocket when I went to bed. I said, and the day after I looked in my pocket, I said it was gone. And we looked, I said, in the house all over the place. No, he said, he knew you were finished with it, he said, so he came and got it. And that's what she told me. And right up till today, I kind of believe the story myself, you know. It sounds kind of funny, but I believed her. I believed her. Because then, and my shoulders and my elbows never got sore after. That was it. That was the last time. After I put that little potato in my pocket, it just cured my shoulders and my, I don't know what it was, whether it was arthritis or what it was, but I was just a kid. I was only probably about 10, 11 years old when this was happening to me. But she cured me with that potato.
I was telling Anna on the way here about how she would go and could go door to door all over, but visiting, but actually looking at the kids.
Yes, yeah. She used to. I used to be amazed of her. You know, like she was so sweet, the old girl. Like you see her there with her husband there, Norbert Racette. Her name was Flora Racette, but she was an Ellery actually, and she came from Turtle Mountain originally, and she used to go around visiting people, and she'd go and have a cup of tea. She'd come and have a cup of tea with Mother, and piece of cake or cookie or bannock and jam, you know, homemade jam. So whatever there was, you know, they'd have a little cup of tea and chat, you know. But after realizing why she was there, she wasn't there to visit my mother, actually. She came there to come and check on the kids, on the whole works of us. Like she wanted to see. And if any of us, or wherever she went and visited, if any of the kids were sniffling or had runny noses, she'd tell the mother, "You send one of the kids with me, I'll give you some medicine, you give that kid right away and get rid of that," you know. And within a day, you used to get rid of it. And it was all herbs, you know, it wasn't, she picked all these things. And in the fall, I remember going to her place in the fall. They had a little place where they used to cook in the summertime. There's a kitchen stove inside of this little building they call a hangar at that time, but it was actually a back kitchen or whatever you'd want to call it in English. So she used to hang all her herbs and her medicine in there in the fall. You couldn't hardly get into that building. They were all hanging from the ceiling. That place would be just full of stuff, and then she'd have stuff on the floor all over the place, you know, and just unreal, like. And to me it was all weeds, but it was all medicine that she had. And she saw one of the kids my aunt, one of their little guy there, he was always having styes, eh? If he'd just get rid of a sty and then another one would come. He'd get rid of that and another one would come. And she saw that, and she went home and went and made a medicine and sent it back with one of the kids, and that little guy drank that stuff, a whole quart of it. He drank about 3 or 4 ounces at the time, and when he finished, by the time he finished that quart of medicine, his styes were gone. Never had a sty after that. And as far as doctoring, like she brought in all the kids that was born down the valley there, like all my cousins there. They're probably about 95% of us was brought into this world by her. Oh, she was good. She was really, really good. And I used to laugh at her. In their kitchen, in their old house there at the farm there, she used to have a little box where she used to keep her treasures, eh? Kind of a treasure box. But it was made, homemade one, was made out of wood. I think I wouldn't be far wrong if I said probably my father-in-law made that for her, you know. But she used to put a blanket on top of that little treasure chest of hers, and she used to sleep there. She'd sleep there on top of that little box. And that box couldn't have been no more than about 3 feet long. And she curled up there, and she used to sleep there. Lots of times my mother would go up there, and here she'd be sitting in there, laying in this little treasure chest of hers, sound asleep. I used to laugh. My mother used to tease her. She said, he said, you're just like an old cat. He said, you can just sleep in the old place at all. But oh, she slept on that thing, and she got up, and she was bright before she went to bed, you know. I can still see that. There's lots of things like stuff like that I remember. And my grandpa there, Norbert, every dinner time, after he finished dinner, he played the fiddle too, eh? And he'd have his fiddle hanging on the wall there in the living room, and he'd take that fiddle down at noon, and he'd play for half an hour every day. After lunch, after he'd have his lunch, he'd play that fiddle. And then after he finished playing it, he'd hang it back up, and then he'd go out to work, back out in the field with his horses, eh? Back to work. But things like that it's very hard to forget things like that. You know, you remember these things real well. And we used to go there New Year's Day, eh? Like New Year's Day was a real day for everybody down the valley. Like everybody visits each other years ago. And they used to fire shotguns at that time. Same as weddings. Weddings was the same thing. They fired shotguns at weddings. Why they did it, I don't know, but it was a tradition. And they still, the Cree people in the fall still carry that tradition. They shoot their shotguns at 12 o'clock, midnight, New Year's. Yeah. Yeah, it's quite a thing in Nepal. You just hear those shotguns all over the place. It's quite. But every time I hear that, really brings back memories for me. Like I remember when Eddie Patra got married, my cousin. He married my cousin there, and Mary Fiant. They shot shotguns there too at that wedding. And then my dad used to sing at the weddings. It was really nice to hear him as I sit here today, I can hear him singing these songs. And I was crazy that I never learned how to sing those songs that he had. He had about 4 songs that he sang in French, but it was they were all just songs that were sung at a wedding only, eh? Like if they had a party, well, they had different songs that they sang, but they sang these particular songs at wedding tables before they have the meal, eh? It was kind of, from what I gathered, and I asked Dad a few times what this was all about, or what does this mean, you know. He said it's a love story of a man and a woman, you know, falling in love and then getting married, and so that's why he said they're only sung at a wedding. And then but there's lots of things that I remember, and I could still see them, and like square dancing, years ago they used to dance all those old dances, like I'll name them off in Cree here. You know what whether some other people might understand, but they used to the drops of brandy they used to call la danse de crochet, and then they used to the handkerchief dance, la danse de mouchouet they called that, and then the rabbit dance, la danse de lièvre, and then the duck dance, la danse de canard they used to call that. And they used to dance all those dances. Those are all old traditional dances, say, years ago. That like there were special tunes played to dance those dances, you know. I don't know if anybody ever explained it to you girls, but there is special tunes that they play, that you dance to, and dance these different pieces. But I've seen it. I've seen them done. Like I used to love watching my Aunt Emma, Uncle Rennie Amiot's wife. I used to love watching her dancing with Uncle Louis Cardinal, dancing the drops of brandy. Boy, those two people, they were just floating. Just like they weren't even touching the floor, the way they danced. It was so beautiful, the way they did it. But there are lots of them, like my old grandma too, old Grandma Rosette, Coco Meras. She used to be really, really good dancing, and all those old dances, like the duck dance, they used to dance those.